Welcome back to Dreambird's Aviary. This is step 3 of the DIY Indian ringneck aviary build. As you can see, this aviary is now fully finished, inside and outside, following the same design throughout. The bottom half is plywood, and the top half is mesh sheet. When I say outside, I mean the outer face of the aviary wall inside this building, not exposed to rain or weather. Even though this aviary is indoors, I still treated it like an outdoor build. I closed all sides properly, sealed every gap, and used plywood on the ceiling just like I used on the walls. That keeps the aviary warm, reduces drafts, and makes it cozy in winter. The double-glazed window gives natural light during the day, but no cold air comes through. So even with the mesh for ventilation, the aviary still stays protected from wind and temperature changes. And just like the other aviaries I have built, this one matches the same style. So when you look from one end to the other, everything looks clean, aligned, and uniform across the entire setup. The goal is simple: strong frame, clean finish, and a comfortable environment for the birds. You will see step by step how I fitted the plywood, fixed the mesh sheet, and made everything look neat and solid. If you've been following this aviary build, you'll remember in step 2 we completed the mesh sheets and the roof. Here's a quick look back so you can see where we left off. The aviary structure was fully framed, mesh fitted inside and outside, and everything was looking strong and clean. Now in step 3, we move forward. In this video, I'm going to open this section of the partition wall, remove the plasterboard, and then fit a half plywood sheet and half mesh sheet. Just like the other aviaries, so everything matches. Once this section is done, you will be able to see straight through from one end of the aviary to the other, and the whole layout will look uniform. As you can see, the aviary is looking really clean now. Inside and outside everything is matching, the mesh, the plywood, all of it looks the same across every section. So in this step, we're moving forward and we're going to open this wall to continue the layout and make the whole aviary flow from one side to the other. So let's start step 3. First of all, I'm not connecting the aviaries. I'm just opening this section of the partition wall. This part was originally covered with plasterboard, so I started by removing the plasterboard carefully and slowly, piece by piece. I didn't rush this part because I didn't want to damage the frame around it. Once the plasterboard was off, I cleaned the edges properly and checked the opening to make sure everything was straight and neat. I brushed away any loose dust and removed leftover screws, so the frame was clean and ready for fitting. The reason I'm opening this section is to install half plywood sheet and half mesh sheet, matching the design of the other aviaries. By doing this, all aviaries will have the same look, and it will allow a clear see-through view from one end of the aviary to the other. Everything will look uniform, clean, and professional once it's finished. Now that the opening is ready, I'm installing the plywood sheet. I measured the opening carefully so the plywood fits perfectly without leaving any gaps. After marking the size, I cut the plywood sheet and checked the fit before fixing it. To secure it properly, I'm using 5x50mm screws. I place the screws evenly around the frame so the plywood stays tight and doesn't move or bend over time. When fixing plywood, I always double check the alignment before fully tightening the screws. This keeps everything straight and level. Once the plywood was fixed in place, the opening instantly looked cleaner and more solid. Now the frame is ready for the next step, fitting the mesh sheet on top to match the aviary design. As you can see here, this partition wall has more timber than a normal other aviary wall. This wall is old, and originally it was built for plasterboard, not for an aviary. That's why the timber spacing here is smaller. Normally when you build a plasterboard wall, the studs are around 400 mm apart. But for the new aviary sections I'm building now, I designed the frame differently. I'm using plywood and mesh sheet, and there's no weight sitting on top of this wall, so I'm spacing the new timber studs 800 mm apart. For this type of build, 800 mm spacing is perfectly fine because the structure does not need to hold any load above it. The wall was already strong and solid, so I didn't need to rebuild or change the frame. I just removed the plasterboard and updated the opening. I wanted to explain this so you understand why the spacing in this section looks different from the rest of the aviary. I didn't record the part where I was fixing the mesh sheet because there wasn't enough space to position the camera, but I'm explaining everything here so you'll still know exactly how to fit it. If you want to do the same in your aviary. Now it's time to fit the mesh sheet. After the plywood was fixed, I measured the opening and cut the mesh to the exact size I needed. Before fixing it, I always check that the mesh is straight. Once you start screwing it down, you don't have much movement to adjust. To secure the mesh, I'm using screws with washers. Washers are very important when you're working with mesh sheets. Without washers, the mesh can easily pull through the screw head over time and become loose. With washers, every screw grips the mesh tight and keeps it flat against the plywood frame. I start from one corner, pull the mesh tight, and then fix the opposite corner. This keeps the mesh straight with no sagging or waves. After that, I work around the edges, adding screws evenly spaced. I make sure the mesh is fully tight and secure before moving on. Once the mesh was fixed, the whole section instantly looked clean and professional, matching the rest of the aviary. Now the mesh and plywood are fitted and this section is complete. You can see how clean and tidy it looks. The finish matches perfectly with the other aviaries. From this angle, you can see straight through from one end to the other, and everything lines up nicely. This is exactly what I wanted. A clean see-through layout so all aviaries look the same, inside and outside. The mesh gives good airflow and visibility, while the plywood keeps the structure strong and solid.
Sorry, Alex.
It makes the aviary look more professional and opens up the space visually. At this point, I move my Alexandrine parrots back into their aviary. I've finished everything on this side, and the only thing left is the painting. But I'm not going to paint this side right now because I already moved the birds back today, and I don't want to disturb them again. They look really happy. There's more light coming through now, and they can see right through into the new Indian ringneck aviaries beside them. So for now, I'll leave this side as it is, and I'll complete the painting in the next step. As you can see, the parrots are really happy to be back in their own aviary. As soon as I moved them here, they went straight to their own feeding tray and started enjoying their food. Even though I gave them food in the temporary aviary while I was working, they didn't enjoy eating there as much as they do here. They love their routine and their own space. I also put back the nesting box exactly the same way it was before. I only removed it when I was taking off the plasterboard and fitting the mesh sheet. Hopefully they don't mind the change and they continue using and liking their nesting box just like before. Now I'm starting the painting. I'm using an outdoor grade paint so it seals the plywood and protects the wood from moisture, dust, and any future cleaning. Before painting, I always give the sheet a quick wipe just to remove any dust or marks. That helps the paint stick better and gives a smoother finish. For the first coat, I don't worry about perfect coverage. The goal is just to seal the surface and let the wood absorb the paint. Once this dries, I'll come back later and add a second and third coat to make it look nice and even. I'm not going to finish painting the rest of the aviary in this video because it's already getting long, and I still have more work to show in the next step. But now you can see the transformation starting, clean, smooth, and all matching with the other aviaries. As you can see, the first coat of paint on this aviary side is now complete. I'll be doing the second and third coats later off camera, because it's just the same process again. Paint, let it dry, and repeat. Once all the coats are finished, the surface will look smooth, clean, and fully matches the rest of the aviary. Coat of paint. You can really see how this section is transforming from a simple frame into a proper aviary. Every step makes it stronger, cleaner, and more professional, just the way I want it for my parrot. In the next step, I'll show the inside layout, hanging perches, seed tray, water tray, the doors, and the full setup from ceiling to floor. Once everything is placed, you'll get the full idea of how birds will move, fly, eat, drink, and enjoy the space. I'll also share tips on how I hang things safely, how I keep everything easy to clean, and how to avoid wasting food and water. If you're enjoying this build, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Dreambird Aviary so you don't miss the next video. Your support motivates me to keep improving the aviary and share every detail with you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in step 4. Where things start getting really exciting, because that's when this aviary becomes a home.